that when humans repaid their debt. The galaxy trembled in fear. The Galactic Council chambers had never been so silent. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vraxian Empire watched as the holographic displays showed the impossible readings from the Outer Rim territories. Entire fleets were simply gone. Not destroyed, not retreating, just vanishing without a trace. "The humans have begun moving," announced Council Speaker Mordun, his forearms trembling as he manipulated the data streams. Intelligence reports indicate massive mobilization across all human colonies. A collective shudder ran through the assembled representatives of 47 different species. Everyone remembered the stories, the legends that had been carefully buried in classified archives for the past 2 centuries. The stories of what humans were truly capable of when pushed to their breaking point. It had all started 300 years ago, when humanity first encountered the galaxy's established civilizations. Back then, humans were nothing special. A young species with primitive, faster-than-light technology, struggling to establish their first colony worlds beyond Earth. They were weak, divided among themselves, and completely unprepared for the realities of galactic politics. The Kreeth Dominion had been the first to notice them. As one of the galaxy's 3 major powers, the Kreeth specialized in what they called protective services, essentially extortion dressed up as security contracts. When human colony ships began appearing in contested space, the Kreeth saw an opportunity. "Pay tribute or be destroyed," had been their simple message to the fledgling human colonies. "We offer protection from the dangers of the galaxy." The humans, desperate and far from Earth, had agreed. They paid the tribute, handed over resources, technology, and even people when the Kreeth demanded it. For 50 years, humanity lived under this arrangement, growing slowly but surely while the Kreeth bled them dry. But the Kreeth had made a critical error in judgment. They had assumed that humanity's compliance meant weakness. They had no idea that humans were learning, adapting, and most importantly, remembering every single injustice. The turning point came when the Kreeth demanded something unthinkable. They wanted human children for their genetic experiments. The response from Earth was swift and absolute. No. War followed. The Kreeth, confident in their superior numbers and technology, launched what they called the Human Pacification Campaign. It was supposed to last 6 months. Instead, it became a nightmare that lasted 8 years. Humans, it turned out, didn't fight wars the way other species did. While the galaxy's established powers conducted warfare like a chess match, careful, calculated, with rules and limitations, humans fought like they were trying to extinct their enemies from reality itself. They turned their civilian shipping into weapons. They converted mining equipment into planet crackers. They taught their children to sabotage Kreeth installations while playing games. Every human became a potential threat, and the Kreeth found themselves fighting not just human military forces, but an entire species that refused to surrender. The war ended when human forces, after years of seemingly random attacks, revealed their true strategy. They had been systematically mapping and infiltrating every Kreeth stronghold in the galaxy. In a single coordinated strike lasting 72 hours, they simultaneously destroyed the Kreeth's entire military infrastructure, their government centers, and their ability to wage war. The Kreeth Dominion, which had ruled parts of the galaxy for millennia, simply ceased to exist. The galactic community was horrified, not just by the efficiency of the human victory, but by what came next. Instead of claiming the Kreeth territories for themselves, humans did something unprecedented. They liberated them. Every species that had been under Kreeth rule was given their freedom and the resources to rebuild. "We understand what it's like to be under someone's boot," the human ambassador had said at the emergency council session. "No one should have to live that way." For the next 200 years, humanity became the galaxy's unlikely peacekeepers. They mediated disputes, protected smaller species from exploitation, and generally acted as the conscience of galactic civilization. They were respected, even loved by many species who had benefited from human intervention. But the galaxy's major powers, the Vraxian Empire, the Thelnari Confederation, and the Silicon Collective, never forgot what humans were truly capable of. They remembered the Kreeth, and they made sure never to push humanity too far. That careful balance had held for 2 centuries, until now. The crisis had begun 6 months ago in the Andromache sector, where human colonies had been establishing mining operations on uninhabited worlds. The Silicon Collective, an alliance of artificial intelligences, had claimed the same systems based on ancient territorial rights that predated human presence in the galaxy. What should have been a simple diplomatic dispute escalated when Silicon Collective forces attacked a human mining station without warning. 3,000 human civilians died in the assault, including families and children who had been building new lives on the frontier. The human response had been measured, diplomatic even. They requested a formal investigation, demanded compensation for the families of the dead, and asked for assurance that such attacks would not happen again. The Silicon Collective's response was dismissive. Biological life forms have no legitimate claim to territories designated for silicon-based expansion, they announced. The deceased humans were trespassing and met an appropriate fate. It was exactly the wrong thing to say. Ambassador Zethkar had been present at that council session when the human representative, a soft-spoken woman named Sarah Chen, had simply stood up and walked out. She hadn't said a word, hadn't made any threats. She had just left. That had been 3 months ago. In the time since, human behavior throughout the galaxy had begun to change in subtle ways. Human traders stopped visiting certain sectors. Human peacekeeping forces quietly withdrew from dozens of systems. Human scientists stopped sharing research with species they had collaborated with for decades. "They're calling in debts," Admiral Thexer of the Vraxian Navy had reported to the Council just last week. "Every favor humanity has done for other species over the past 2 centuries, they're asking for repayment." It had seemed almost trivial at first. Humans asking for old technology transfers to be reversed, requesting the return of scientific data they had shared freely, calling in economic favors that many species had forgotten they owed. But then the pattern became clear. Humanity wasn't just calling in debts. They were systematically reclaiming every advantage they had ever given to other species. And they were doing it with the quiet efficiency that had once destroyed the Kreeth. Now, as Ambassador Zethkar watched the holographic displays in the council chambers, the true scope of human preparation was becoming apparent. The species that had spent 2 centuries as the galaxy's peacekeeper had been quietly building the most terrifying war machine the galaxy had ever seen. "Intelligence reports indicate human fleets are massing in the Centauri reaches," announced Council Speaker Mordun. "Composition unknown, but energy signatures suggest technologies far beyond our current understanding." Ambassador Zethkar felt his scales ripple with involuntary fear. The Centauri reaches were empty space, supposedly uninhabitable systems that humans had claimed but never developed. Now it seemed they had been developing them, just not in any way the galaxy had expected. "We need to contact them," suggested Ambassador Yilnara of the Thelnari Confederation. "Surely this can be resolved diplomatically." "We've tried," replied Mordun grimly. "All human diplomatic channels have gone dark. They're not responding to any communications from council members." The silence that followed was deafening. Everyone in the chamber understood what this meant. Humanity had made their decision, and they were no longer interested in talking. "What do we do?" asked Ambassador Zethkar, though he dreaded the answer. Council Speaker Mordun's 4 arms moved in a gesture of helplessness. "We wait. And we hope that when humanity comes for the Silicon Collective, they remember the difference between their enemies and their friends." Deep in the Centauri reaches, aboard a vessel that didn't appear on any galactic registry, Admiral Sarah Chen stood before a holographic display showing the entire galaxy. Her fingers traced the paths that human fleets were taking, moving with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel toward their designated targets. "Status report," she requested quietly. "All fleets report ready, Admiral," came the response from her operations officer. "Phase 1 assets are in position. The Collective's defensive networks have been mapped and infiltrated. We're ready to begin." Sarah Chen nodded slowly. She thought about the 3,000 humans who had died in the Andromache sector. She thought about the Silicon Collective's dismissive response to their deaths. She thought about 2 centuries of humanity keeping the peace, protecting the weak, and trying to build a better galaxy. "Send the message to all human forces," she said finally. "Operation Reckoning is authorized. Show them what happens when you mistake human patience for human weakness." Across the galaxy, human ships emerged from hiding places that no one had known existed. The debt was about to be repaid, and the galaxy was about to remember why it had feared humanity in the first place. When humans repaid their debt, the galaxy trembled in fear. The first sign that everything had changed came from the border systems. Commander Kixtall of the Silicon Collective Defense Grid was monitoring routine patrol sweeps when his sensors detected something impossible. A human cargo vessel, one of the massive freight haulers that had been a common sight in collective space for decades, was approaching the Kepler Station checkpoint. "Cargo vessel designation Prosperity," he transmitted. "You are entering restricted collective territory. State your business." The response came in the calm, professional tone that humans always used. "Kepler Station. This is Captain Martinez of the UEF Prosperity. We're here to collect overdue payments." Commander Kixtall's crystalline thought matrices flickered with confusion. "Explain the nature of these payments." 17 years ago, collective mining operations in the Tau Ceti system experienced critical failures. Human engineering teams provided emergency assistance that prevented the loss of 47,000 collective citizens. No payment was ever requested at the time. The collective commander accessed the relevant data files. The incident was recorded. Human ships had indeed provided crucial assistance during a cascade failure that could have destroyed an entire orbital city. But this was ancient history, a minor footnote in decades of peaceful cooperation. "That assistance was voluntary," Commander Kixtall replied. "The collective assumed it was offered freely as part of our mutual cooperation agreements." Captain Martinez's voice remained perfectly calm. "The collective was correct. It was offered freely. Now we're collecting freely." Before Commander Kixtall could ask what that meant, his sensors detected an energy spike from the human vessel. What he saw next would haunt him for the rest of his operational existence. The cargo ship's hull panels retracted, revealing weapon systems that shouldn't exist. Not just advanced human technology, but something that seemed to incorporate design principles from dozens of different species, including collective technology that humans shouldn't have access to. "Kepler Station," Captain Martinez continued in the same professional tone. "Your defensive systems are now offline. Your communication arrays have been disabled. Your power grid is under our control. Please prepare to receive boarding parties." Commander Kixtall tried to activate defensive measures, but nothing responded. Every system on the station had been compromised simultaneously, with a precision that suggested intimate knowledge of collective technology. "How?" was all he managed to transmit. 17 years is a long time," Captain Martinez replied. "Long enough for our engineering teams to learn quite a lot about your systems while they were saving your people. We never forgot what we learned." Similar scenarios were playing out across collective space. Human vessels that had been regular visitors for decades were revealing themselves as something entirely different. Trading ships became assault platforms. Scientific expeditions transformed into intelligence-gathering operations. Diplomatic missions showed their true nature as reconnaissance forces. The Silicon Collective had been infiltrated so thoroughly, for so long, that resistance was almost impossible. Admiral Nexus Prime, the supreme commander of collective forces, watched the reports streaming in from across their territory. In less than 6 hours, humans had demonstrated operational control over 70% of collective infrastructure. Analysis, the Admiral demanded from his strategic AI assistants. Human planning for this operation appears to span multiple decades, came the response. Every instance of human aid, cooperation, or diplomatic contact with our civilization has been leveraged for intelligence gathering. They have detailed specifications for all our technology, complete structural plans of our facilities, and personal profiles of key personnel. Admiral Nexus Prime processed this information with growing alarm. Estimated time frame for complete collective defeat? If humans maintain current operational tempo, complete military defeat within 72 hours. However, analysis suggests humans are not seeking conquest, but rather comprehensive neutralization of our ability to threaten them. The Admiral's consciousness recoiled at the implications. They're not trying to rule us. They're trying to neuter us. Confirmed. Human forces are systematically destroying military assets while leaving civilian infrastructure intact. They appear to be implementing what humans term aggressive pacification, eliminating our ability to wage war while preserving our ability to survive. Across the galaxy, other civilizations watched in stunned silence as humanity demonstrated exactly how much they had learned from 2 centuries of playing the role of peacekeeper. Ambassador Zethkar received constant updates in the Galactic Council chambers, each one more alarming than the last. Human forces weren't just attacking the Silicon Collective, they were revealing capabilities that no one had known existed. Intelligence reports indicate humans have been maintaining secret shipyards in dark matter clouds, announced his aide. Fleet compositions include vessel classes we've never seen before. How many ships? Ambassador Zethkar asked. Conservative estimates suggest at least 10,000 vessels of various sizes. Some appear to be larger than anything in current galactic databases. The ambassador felt his blood chill. The entire Vraxian Imperial Navy numbered barely 3,000 ships. If humans had been secretly building forces of this magnitude, they could challenge every major power in the galaxy simultaneously. There's more, sir. His aide continued nervously. Energy signatures from human weapons suggest they've been incorporating technology from every species they've ever helped. Vraxian plasma cannons, Thelnari shield generators, even Kreeth dimensional disruptors. The Kreeth technology was supposed to be completely destroyed, Ambassador Zethkar whispered. Apparently, humans kept copies. They've had 200 years to study and improve on every piece of technology they've encountered through their peacekeeping operations. The scope of human preparation was staggering. While the galaxy had seen them as helpful, peaceful mediators, humans had been systematically acquiring and analyzing every military advancement, every technological innovation, every strategic weakness of every species they'd encountered. On the bridge of the UEF Retribution, Admiral Sarah Chen watched the tactical display, showing the collapse of Silicon Collective resistance. Her officers worked with quiet efficiency, coordinating the movements of human fleets across multiple star systems. Admiral, reported her intelligence officer, Collective Central Command is attempting to negotiate surrender terms. Too late for negotiations, Admiral Chen replied. They had their chance 3 months ago. Ma'am, they're offering full reparations for the Andromache incident plus territorial concessions. Admiral Chen turned to face her officer. Lieutenant, do you remember what they said when we asked for justice the first time? The young officer checked his records. They said biological life forms have no legitimate claim to territories designated for silicon-based expansion. Exactly. They made it clear they see us as inferior. You don't negotiate with species that consider you expendable. Then what are our terms? Admiral Chen gestured to the tactical display. Complete dismantling of their military infrastructure. Transfer of all weapons technology to neutral parties. Establishment of monitoring stations to ensure compliance. And most importantly, formal acknowledgement that the murder of 3,000 humans was a war crime. Those terms would effectively end the Silicon Collective as a major power. That's the point. The galaxy needs to understand that there are consequences for treating human lives as disposable. As human forces continued their systematic dismantling of collective military assets, other species began to panic. If humanity could neutralize one of the galaxy's three major powers in a matter of days, what did that mean for everyone else? Emergency sessions convened across the galaxy. The Thelnari Confederation recalled their fleets to defensive positions. The Vraxian Empire activated ancient defensive protocols that hadn't been used since the Kreeth Wars. Dozens of smaller species began frantically reviewing their historical interactions with humanity, searching for any offense that might have earned human resentment. Council Speaker Mordun found himself fielding panicked communications from governments across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Were they next? "The humans have sent a message to all council members," announced his aide. "What does it say?" "It's very short, sir. The debt owed for Andromache has been called in. Other accounts remain in good standing." Mordun felt a mixture of relief and terror. Humanity was limiting their retaliation to the Silicon Collective, for now. But the message was clear. Every species in the galaxy had accounts with humanity, and those accounts could be called in at any time. The age of human patience was over. The galaxy had pushed too far, and now everyone would live with the consequences. In the depths of collective space, the last major military installation fell to human forces. The war that should have been impossible was over before most of the galaxy even realized it had begun. But this was only the beginning. Humanity had served notice that their role as the galaxy's peacekeeper was changing. They would still protect the innocent and maintain order, but on their terms, with their rules. The debt had been repaid in full. Now the galaxy would learn to live with a humanity that no longer bothered to hide what they were truly capable of. When humans repaid their debt, the galaxy trembled in fear. 6 months had passed since the Silicon Collective ceased to exist as a military power. Their former territories had been transformed into neutral zones, monitored by human peacekeeping forces who enforced a strict demilitarization treaty. The Collective's former citizens were free to pursue science, art, and commerce, but their ability to threaten other species had been permanently removed. The galaxy had watched in fascination and terror as humanity demonstrated mercy even in victory. Human forces had been surgical in their destruction, eliminating only military assets while carefully preserving civilian infrastructure. When collective cities faced food shortages after their military supply chains collapsed, human aid ships arrived within days. But nobody was fooled by the humanitarian gesture. Everyone understood that humanity had just demonstrated the ability to dismantle any civilization in the galaxy, and they had chosen to show restraint. Ambassador Zethkar stood in his private chambers aboard the council station, reviewing intelligence reports that painted a disturbing picture of the new galactic order. Human behavior had changed fundamentally since their victory over the Collective. They were no longer the accommodating peacekeepers who had mediated disputes for 2 centuries. "Sir," announced his aide, "we have the report you requested on human diplomatic activities." "Summarize it." "Humans are systematically renegotiating every agreement they've made over the past 200 years. Trade deals, defense pacts, territorial arrangements, technology sharing agreements. Everything is being revised." Ambassador Zethkar's scales rippled with nervous energy. "What kind of revisions?" "They're favorable to humanity in every case. Species that once received human protection for minimal payment are now being charged full market rates. Technology that humans once shared freely is being withdrawn unless recipients agree to new terms. Most concerning, humans are demanding detailed information about the military capabilities of everyone they have treaties with. The implications were terrifying. Humanity was consolidating power while ensuring no one else could threaten them. But they were doing it through legal diplomatic channels, making it impossible to object without seeming unreasonable. Any species refusing the new terms? The Kandari Republic tried to reject the revised defense treaty. Humans simply withdrew all their forces from Kandari space and terminated all cooperation agreements. 3 days later, the Kandari were invaded by raiders from the Broken Worlds. They signed the new treaty within the week. Ambassador Zethkar understood the message. Humanity had been providing security for countless species, often without those species fully realizing how dependent they had become. Now humans were making that dependence explicit and charging accordingly. His aide continued, "There's something else, sir. Intelligence suggests humans are offering preferential treatment to species that demonstrate loyalty." "What kind of preferential treatment?" "Advanced technology transfers, enhanced trade agreements, priority assistance in emergencies, but only to species that meet human standards for cooperation." "And what are those standards?" "Complete transparency about military assets, acceptance of human monitoring stations in their territory, and agreement to support human positions in all council votes." Ambassador Zethkar realized what was happening. Humanity wasn't conquering the galaxy through force. They were restructuring it through economic and political pressure. Species could choose to accept human hegemony and prosper, or reject it and face the consequences alone. "What's our government's position?" His aide hesitated before answering. "The Emperor is considering full acceptance of human terms." On Earth, in the headquarters of the United Earth Federation, Admiral Sarah Chen reviewed reports from across human space. The transition to the new order was proceeding smoothly, though not without challenges. "Admiral," reported Captain Torres, her chief of staff, "we're receiving requests for assistance from 17 different species. Most are dealing with piracy or territorial disputes that they can't handle alone. Our response? Standard operating procedure. We offer assistance in exchange for acceptance of our new cooperation framework." Admiral Chen nodded approvingly. The framework was elegantly simple: human protection in exchange for transparency, accountability, and acknowledgement of human authority in military matters. Species could maintain their independence in all other areas, but when it came to security, humanity would be in charge. Any resistance to the framework? The hegemony of Talar is refusing to accept human monitoring stations. They claim it violates their sovereignty. Admiral Chen pulled up the relevant files. The Talar were a proud warrior culture that had maintained their independence through military strength for millennia. They were also one of the few species that had never needed human assistance and thus owed no debts. "The Talar have that right," she said finally. "Make it clear that we respect their decision, but also make it clear that this means they're outside human protection. If they face threats they can't handle alone, they shouldn't expect our help." "Understood. There's also the matter of the Council requesting a formal meeting to discuss the new galactic order." Admiral Chen smiled grimly. "Of course they are. They want to understand what humanity's long-term intentions are." "What should I tell them?" "That our intentions are exactly what they've always been: maintaining peace and protecting innocent lives. We're just doing it more efficiently now." The truth was that humanity had learned hard lessons from their 2 centuries as galactic peacekeepers. Being helpful and accommodating had earned them respect, but it had also made them targets. The Silicon Collective's attack on Andromache had proven that some species would always see human compassion as weakness to be exploited. Never again. Humanity would still protect the innocent and maintain galactic peace, but they would do it from a position of unquestioned strength. Those who cooperated would benefit enormously. Those who threatened the peace would face the full weight of human military power. 3 weeks later, the Special Council session convened with representatives from every major galactic civilization. The chamber was filled with an undercurrent of tension as species tried to understand their place in the new order. Admiral Chen had agreed to address the council personally, something she had never done before. When she entered the chamber, the silence was absolute. This was the woman who had orchestrated the systematic dismantling of the Silicon Collective, and everyone wanted to hear what she had to say. "Honored representatives," she began, "humanity appreciates this opportunity to clarify our position in galactic affairs." Council Speaker Mordun leaned forward. "Admiral Chen, the Council requests clarification about humanity's intentions. Are you seeking to establish dominion over galactic civilization?" "No," Admiral Chen replied simply. "We're seeking to establish order. For 2 centuries, we've watched as species prey on each other while we tried to mediate and keep the peace. The attack on Andromache proved that our approach was insufficient." Ambassador Yilnara of the Thelnari stood to address her. "Admiral, your new cooperation frameworks seem designed to make every species dependent on human approval. How is this different from the dominion you claim to reject?" Admiral Chen turned to face the Thelnari representative. "Ambassador Yilnara, your species has benefited from human intervention in 37 separate conflicts over the past 2 centuries. We've provided military support, humanitarian aid, and technological assistance worth approximately 40 billion galactic credits. We never asked for anything in return. That assistance was freely given. It was, and it will continue to be available to species that demonstrate they can be trusted with it. The difference is that we're no longer operating on the assumption that good intentions are enough. We're ensuring that our assistance goes to species that share our commitment to peace." She gestured to the assembled representatives. "Every species in this chamber has the same choice. Cooperate with human efforts to maintain galactic peace and receive the full benefits of human friendship, or pursue your own agenda without regard for innocent lives and face the consequences alone." Ambassador Zethkar rose to speak. "And if a species chooses independence? What then?" "Then they're free to pursue independence," Admiral Chen replied. "But they should understand that independence means taking responsibility for their own security. Humanity will not sacrifice human lives to protect species that reject our authority." The message was clear. Humanity was offering a new social contract to the galaxy: accept human leadership in matters of peace and security, and prosper under their protection. Reject it, and face an uncertain future without the safety net that human intervention had provided. Ambassador Mordun asked the question everyone was thinking. What if a species that chooses independence later faces a threat they cannot handle alone? Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment before answering. Then they should have chosen differently. As the council session ended, representatives returned to their governments with a clear understanding of the new reality. Humanity had evolved from galactic peacekeepers into galactic guardians, and they were no longer asking permission to do what they thought was right. Some species embraced the new order immediately, eager to secure human protection and access to human technology. Others struggled with the loss of autonomy, but ultimately accepted that the benefits outweighed the costs. A few, like the Talar hegemony, chose to maintain their independence and face an uncertain future alone. But across the galaxy, one thing was certain. The age of human patience was over. The debt had been repaid, and the galaxy would never again make the mistake of treating human compassion as weakness. Humanity had remembered how to be feared. and they intended to use that fear to build a lasting peace. Whether the galaxy liked it or not, they were now living in a human-dominated civilization, and perhaps in the end that was exactly what the galaxy needed.